Hello, and welcome to the chapter summary for Chapter 12, Health Information Technologies. So we're going to start with healthcare informatics. Informatics can be defined as the science of information management. It uses computers to manage data and information, and it supports decision-making activities. So in short, informatics can be summarized by the following statement. A person working in partnership with an information resource is better than a person unassisted. And that was Friedman, 2009. So healthcare informatics is the field of information science, focusing on the intersection of technology, clinical practice, and financial affairs, as defined by AHIMA back in 2014. So it is concerned with the management of all aspects of health data and information through the application of computers and computer technologies. So current and emerging health information technologies. First of all, it's appropriate that HIM professionals review some of the current and emerging technologies used to support the delivery of healthcare, as well as the management and communication of health data and information within the healthcare setting. The following categories of current and emerging technologies in healthcare are discussed later in this chapter. Okay, so supporting or technologies that's going to support the capture of various types of data in formats, supporting efficient access to and flow of data and information, supporting diagnosis, treatment, and care of patients. So supporting capture of various types of data and formats. So the information technologies currently in use for healthcare applications, as well as the new technologies being developed, support the capture of many different data types and formats that are used to support clinical services and administrative functions performed in every healthcare settings. So some EHR data types, those are going to be your structured, unstructured, things that are imaged, audio, video, or vector graphic. Okay. So the ultimate goal in speech recognition, so we're going to talk about speech recognition technology first. The ultimate goal in speech recognition technology is to be able to talk to a computer's central processor and rapidly create vocabularies for applications without collecting any speech sample. So in other words, without training, okay? So it includes being able to talk at a natural speed, like I'm doing now, and tone, and in no specific manner. It also includes having a computer understand what the user wants to say in the context of the word or words that are spoken, and then apply the correct commands or words as coded data in a structured format. So auto coding and computer assisted coding, also known as CAC, these are terms commonly used to describe NPL technology. So if you're not familiar with NPL, that's natural language processing technology. That's a method of extracting and subsequently translating dictated and then transcribed free text data, or dictated and then computer generated discrete data into international classification of diseases. That's your ICD, right? Or you can use current procedural technology codes. That's your CPT, specifically for clinical and financial applications, such as patient billing and or health record coding. So if you are using this textbook, I would refer you back to chapter 9. Remember, this is the 6th edition. Refer you back to chapter 9 for more information on computer assisted coding. All right, so text mining. What is text mining? Text mining and data mining are the terms commonly used to describe the process of extracting and then quantifying and filtering free text data and discrete data, respectively. All right, so electronic document and content management systems. So an electronic document or content, management system, that's ED or in CM shortened, right, is any electronic system that manages an organization's analog and digital documents and content that is not just the data, to realize significant improvements in business work processes. So, like most information systems, the EDCM system consists of several component technologies that support both digital and analog document and content management. So, cold, what is the definition of cold? Cold is your computer output laser disk enterprise report management technology. Okay, then we have PACS. You might be familiar with PACS. That's typically used in radiology departments, right? So it's picture archiving and communication systems is what PACS stands for. Okay, so next up is automatic recognition technologies. Okay, so there are several types of automatic recognition technologies, which can be grouped into two categories. Okay, character and symbol recognition technologies, which includes barcoding, optimal character recognition, which is OCR, another OCR, right? Not the Office of Civil Rights, and gesture recognition technologies. So technologies that identify actual items include radio frequency identification, RFID, and intelligent document recognition, IDR technologies. Okay, so these technologies do not require a character or symbol for recognition. They can track an item using an embedded chip or recognize form types by remembering patterns in the form. So your enterprise MPI and identity management. So MPIs provide, or EMPIs, provide access to multiple repositories of information from overlapping patient populations that are maintained in separate systems and databases. EMPIs work in two ways, okay? One at the back end, because MPIs or EMPIs coordinate record keeping, or at the front end, EMPIs receive requests from existing registration systems to send data to those systems. All right, so web-derived technology. So there are various, or there are various or a variety of cloud-based health information technologies. So clinician web portals provide simplified, automated methods of creating taxonomy or classifying data, similar to how a consumer would use portals like yahoo.com. So to organize files and data corresponding to food or fashion or travel for easy access. So increasingly, patient web portals are allowing patients to pay their bills online and to securely view all or portions of their provider-based EHR, such as current medical conditions, immunization records, medications, allergies, and tests, or test results, I should say. So intranets, your intranets use internet technologies, but are protected with security features and designed to enhance communication among an organization's internal employees and facilities only, and are cloud-based extranets, which are designed to enhance communication among an organization's external business partners. So web content management systems, those are labels and specifically used to track information that is placed on a website so that the information can be easily located, modified, and reused. Okay, so web services. Web services is a technology that is a platform for software application or services whose basic communication mechanism is XML, the universal language for web, and the accepted format for data exchange over the internet. Okay, so open source software products are application whose source, typically human readable code is freely available to anyone who's interested in downloading the code. Okay, we're still talking about supporting diagnosis, treatment, and care of the patient. So many current and emerging information technologies are used to support the diagnosis, treatment, and care of the patient. So for purposes of this chapter, the following technologies are highlighted. Physiological signal processing systems, point of care IS systems, mobile and wireless technologies and devices, automated care plans, clinical practice guidelines, clinical pathways and protocols, telemedicine and telehealth, and electronic record systems. So let's talk about each of those real quick. So what is your physiological signal processing system? Think of an ECG or an EEG systems, right? They store data based on the body signals, such as heart activity and brain waves, and they create output based on the lines plotted between signal points. All right, so your point of care information systems, those allow healthcare providers to capture and retrieve data and information at the location where the healthcare service is being performed. True wireless systems. Your true wireless systems use wireless networks and wireless devices to access and transmit data in real time. Okay. So clinical care plans, guidelines, pathways, and protocols, as well as drug formularies and other clinical knowledge bases are becoming automated for easier access and use by healthcare providers, as well as as well as for easier updating and maintenance. So your telemedicine and telehealth, these systems utilize clinically adequate interactive media conferencing, for example, like video conferencing, integrated with other technologies. So it includes telecommunications and remote control based biomedical technologies. So the EHR, the intent of the EHR technology is to capture clinical data from multiple sources to use at the point of care in clinical decision-making and to exchange such data across a continuum of care for care coordination. All right, so EHR versus EMR. This is per the NAHIT. So electronic health record, right? That's the EHR. That's defined as an electronic record of health-related information on an individual that conforms to nationally recognized interoperability standards that can be created, managed, and consulted by authorized clinicians and staff across more than one healthcare organization. That was defined by the NAHIT back in 2008. So you may be asking, who's that? What is that acronym? So the NAHIT is the National Alliance for Health Information Technology. Okay, it's no longer in existence, but the definition remains viable at the federal level. Okay. So the electronic medical record, the EMR, that's defined as an electronic health record or an electronic record of health-related information on an individual that can be created, gathered, managed, and consulted by authorized clinicians and staff within one healthcare organization. So the key, right? You have one healthcare organization in the EMR, and then in the EHR across more than one organization, okay? So the key difference between the EHR and the EMR, as suggested by the NAHIT, is the EHR being interoperable and the EMR is not. Okay. All right, so some components of the EHR system. So an important element of the EHR includes the ability to communicate data with multiple sources. Hence, there must be an IS or ISs in many, if not all, hospital departments. Okay, so although physician practices will have fewer systems with which they must communicate, such systems may more commonly be external to the practice. Okay, collectively, those are called source systems. Core clinical EHR applications are those used directly by clinicians at the point of care. All right, so there's some important elements of the EHR that need special attention once the core clinical EHR components are acquired. Okay, so these include the nature of the databases in managing EHR data, storage management, and e-discovery, special software to support application software, human computer interfaces, which is HCIs, and enhanced security control. So what's an HCI? The term HCI, or human computer interface, not the acronym HCI, is used to describe these technologies because they are the construct that enables exchange of data between the human and the computer. All right, so let me make sure. Okay, yep. All right, so an HIE infrastructure. So the health information exchange is the electronic movement of health-related information among organizations according to nationally recognized standards. That was defined by HIMSS back in 2009, okay? It enables healthcare providers and patients to appropriately access and securely share a patient's vital medical information electronically, improving the speed, quality, safety, and cost of the patient care. That reference is from the ONC 2019. The HIE is culture, process, and technologies directed to deliver an added value to patients, providers, healthcare organizations, and to the public. All right, so there are 3 stages of implementation in an HIE project. They include ensuring proper connectivity and aggregation, the exchange of healthcare data, of clinical data, excuse me. Okay, so they include ensuring proper connectivity and the aggregation, the exchange of clinical data, and finally making the exchange available to participants. So the Interoperability Roadmap, that describes the actions and roles of a variety of health IT stakeholders needed to achieve the ONC's 10-year interoperability vision. Okay, so the nationwide privacy and security framework is designed as guidance to industry participants on the consistent adoption and implementation of standards that address cybersecurity, encryption, ID validation, and permissions to collect, share, and use PHI. So the health information professional, they can serve as a project manager, working with clinical units, registration, and IT to create functional workflows for the correct processing of patient opt-in and opt-out decisions. The HIM professional can also add great value as the organizational bridge between the IT team and the clinical teams that will ultimately determine the value of the HIE to the organization by facilitating the integration of the HIE's capabilities into the daily routines of the different clinical domains. All right, so HIMSS, let's talk about HIMSS really quick. Because, well, okay, so we're going to talk about interoperability changes, but we're going to start off with HIMSS. So HIMSS defines interoperability as the ability of different information technology systems and software applications to communicate, exchange data, and use the information that has been exchanged. Um, and we may have talked about who HIMSS is in another video, but HIMSS, Health Information Management System Society, right? Or Healthcare Information Management Systems Society. In healthcare, the variability of services, products, and systems, and the lack of motivation to share information to achieve a common purpose continues to confound healthcare's efforts for interoperability. Okay, so some challenges to interoperability include the diversity of healthcare services, the wide range of ISs, and the numerous clinical domains with high levels of information complexity. Okay, so achieving interoperability with another facility or organization requires a cultural commitment and a strong trust relationship. Before the IT departments ever get involved, there must be committed governance of the standards for classification, terminologies, vocabularies, and other such structures that are used. I'm sitting here thinking about the chapter. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to be chapter 5 if you want to dive into classifications, terminologies, vocabularies. Okay. All right, so this is a nice diagram. HIE models, right? So in a centralized model, all data are stored in a shared data repository. The governance policies between the participants in the data warehouse dictate the scope of data usage, patient consent for data sharing, and the specific standards and information that are exchanged. Some of the advantages to this architecture are the uniformity of data, quick response times to queries, and consistency in data accessibility. So the disadvantages include increased chances of data duplication, information not being current due to the scheduling of data transfers from participants, and increased costs for the development of data warehouse and the supporting software. So a decentralized HIE architecture. So the decentralized or federated model is an architecture most individuals are familiar with because it is the fundamental way that the internet works. So data and information remain on the servers of the participant hospitals until they're called for, right, through a query. So some advantages of the federated model include data remaining under the control of the HIE participant until needed, redundancy in the event of a disaster because multiple systems mitigate the risk caused by a single point of failure, and data are potentially more current. So disadvantages include data potentially not being available when needed due to the technical challenges with the participant, a potential lack of data sharing for purposes or research, and incomplete data because a patient has records across several participants. Right. Hybrid HIE. In a hybrid model, some data are stored in a centralized database and some remain on the servers of the HIE participants until queried. In many respects, the hybrid provides the best of the two models. All right, so the health record banking model is an organization with information sharing agreements between a group of healthcare providers that enables the aggregation and delivery of patient information to the patient under the control of the patient. A health record bank, HRB, utilizes a centralized data repository that receives patient information from participant organizations, instead of patient information being owned and controlled by the participant, individual patient information is controlled by the patient or the consumer. Participant organization, they push the patient information out to the patient portal as they encounter the patient. The patient is delivered a standardized set of information that they can deliver to care organization on an as-needed basis, negating issues of patient privacy and ownership of the patient record. And HRB creates a record that stores a consumer's longitudinal health record. The HRB's focus is on collecting all of the necessary patient data instead of select data sets. Okay. All right, so legal issues. All right, a patient's decision not to share health information is protected by HIPAA and can have critical consequences for the healthcare provider if the decision is not respected. So the HIE relies upon the patient to both opt in and agree to participate in the HIE, or opt out by choosing not to participate in the HIE. In many states, there is a regulation that determines if the default decision for being a part of the HIE is default in or default out. That makes a difference. So if a state is a default in decision state, so when a patient visits a healthcare provider that is a member of the HIE, the provider will be required to provide the patient with meaningful disclosure of the right not to participate in the HIE and must ask the patient if there's a preference not to participate. If a state is a default out decision state, then the healthcare provider who is a participant in the HIE will provide the patient with the opportunity to join the HIE. So in organizations where the HIE interface is integrated into the EHR, a decision to participate in the EHR or to not participate is communicated to the exchange through the transmission of admit discharge transfer. Remember that? ADT messages, and it's communicated through ADT messages that are coded at the time of registration to a facility. All right, so exchange methods or exchange methodologies. So a simple, secure, scalable, standards-based way for participants to send push. So when we say send, right, we mean push authenticated, encrypted health information directly to known trusted recipients over the internet. Okay. That's what we're referring to here, right? Direct, that's the direct. A direct message is viewed as an email in an HTML format as attachments, labs, CCD, images. Those are frequently sent as portable document formats, also known as what? PDFs, right? So query-based exchange is used by providers to search and discover accessible clinical resources on a patient, okay? A query on a database asks a question of the database and pulls technology, right? Pulls information based on keywords that are used in the query. This type of exchange is often used when delivering unplanned care, such as those EHR visits. So be sure that you understand the difference between push technology and pull technology. All right, so, okay. Another form, right? Another form of pull technology is going to be your consumer mediated exchange. Consumer-mediated exchange, that provides patients with access to their health information, allowing them to manage their healthcare online in a similar fashion to how they might manage their finances through like online banking. That was said by the ONC. A consumer mediated exchange provides the ultimate solution to patient privacy by giving consumers control of who has access to their protected information, their PHI, and when they have access to that information. All right, so some initiatives. It's important to talk about these initiatives. So, innovation projects and programs, private and public, begin with an assumption of an end goal and then proceed to test various ways of obtaining that objective. The innovation process will typically initiate numerous projects or prototypes to test the viability or their viability and to attain the quick wins and failures that will inform the knowledge base and decisions in later stages of the initiative. Okay, so the AHIC. That's the American Health Information Community. That was chartered back in 2005 as an advisory committee to the US Department of Health and Human Services to initiate a common, open, transparent, collaborative framework for achieving interoperability between technology vendors by using a process of advisory committee guidance and competition between technology companies within the industry. So your Beacon Community Cooperative Agreement, that was funded in 17 communities throughout the US to test the potential for building and strengthening HIE infrastructure to streamline and modify workflows and to adjust organizational culture significantly to leverage HIT tools to improve population health and improve the quality of care while reducing cost. The NHIN, that's the Nationwide Health Information Network. So that was established by the ONC in 2004, and it was created or it was used to create a governance structure for HIE information exchange across organizational, regional, and state boundaries. Okay. So that just, I'm sorry, I'm smiling, but not really. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for smiling, but that just made me think of something. So I recently presented a case study in my class about managing an HIM department in 2 different states in 2 different laws. So I'm going to have to circle back to this. Forgive me, I forgot where I left off, but I think we were at the NHIN, right? Okay, so we are going to talk about the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, ARRA, right? That was the meaningful use legislation passed in 2009 that had 3 stages, okay? Stage one was to exchange with another organization. Stage 2 was to exchange between EHR systems from different vendors. And stage 3 was to improve interoperability between EHR systems and access to health information for patients. Okay, so the ONC sponsored state HIE program that was established in 2010 by the ONC, and it was to provide funding to nurture HIE within states and enable statewide exchange using direct and query-based. So that's that push and pull, right? Exchange methods. So the eHealth exchange, the Sequoia project, that was established in the ONC or by the ONC, excuse me, back in 2012 as an exchange network that spans across 50 states, 70,000 medical groups, 4 federal agencies, and 75% of US hospitals. Okay, and that's data from 2019. So that's very relevant. So that was to utilize the standards, governance, and legal agreements of the NHIN as a foundation for an exchange network. Okay, and then lastly is the Commonwealth Health Alliance. The Commonwealth Health Alliance was founded in 2013 by a handful of health IT companies committed to helping solve the longstanding problem of interoperability in the healthcare industry. Traditionally, competitors, these 7 companies, set aside their differences to focus on this simple vision. I thought that was fantastic. All right, so HIE implementation and considerations. So when implementing an HIE, considerations should include the identification of a trust community or trust in the community, right? The development of a governance committee, identification of the technology platform, development of contracts and participant agreements, development of operational policies, development of vendor and participant project teams, a plan for data governance, and the creation of a sandbox for system testing. All right, so the stages of HIE implementation, also 3 stages. Okay, so in the context of an HIE, the MPI will rely on algorithms that match elements of the patient demographic information to determine relationships in patient identity. So the RLS, it handles what does it handle? It handles the bookkeeping and allows the identification of the server instances that contain categories of registered information about a person. Okay, so your stage 2 of implementation will initiate the exchange of clinical data, such as your lab, your radiology reports, your medications, your CCDs, your discharge summary, your physician notes, and more. And then you have your HL7, right? And your clinical documentation architecture, your CDA, and that's used as a standard for document exchange. So in the third stage of the implementation, the HIE is made available to the ambulatory care facilities and providers that refer patients to the acute care facilities. It is in this phase that the HIE is considered a community. All right, so the nationwide interoperability roadmap. So I've referred to the ONC several times already, but just know that these are some links that you can reference. The interoperability roadmap that describes the actions and roles of a variety of health IT stakeholders needed to achieve the ONC's 10-year interoperability vision. So I just wanted to see something here really quick. Okay, so these are available in PDF. So I will link them below in case you're interested in reading more. All right, so we are getting ready to wrap up, but nationwide privacy and security framework. So despite the significant regulations around privacy and security that exist within HIPAA, there remains significant variability within implementation across the industry. So the nationwide privacy and security framework is designed as guidance to industry participants on the consistent adoption and implementation of standards that address cybersecurity, encryption, ID validation, and permissions to collect, share, and use PHI. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is HIM and HIE, right? It's important as HIM professionals that we get involved in governance committees, right? That we share HIE workflows and benefits, that we serve as a project manager when we have the opportunity to do so. And that we serve as a bridge, right? Because HIT, we are a bridge between clinicians and IT. And then always be willing to participate and share knowledge. That is super important. So I hope that you enjoyed this overview of health information technologies.